crush. However, when a sudden zombie outbreak starts, he takes the chance to rizz her up and forms a group of hot baddies to clap while surviving the end of the world. Before the apocalypse, Takashi was skipping the second period of class. He sits alone, sulking, thinking about his childhood crush, Rei, who once promised to marry him, but after she repeated a class, she had a fight with Takashi, and now she's dating his best friend. Then Takagi walks in, scolding him for ditching. While leaning into him, showing off her jiggly jello, Takashi fires back, pointing out that she's not in class either, and Takagi defends herself, saying that she's smart, unlike him, who is an imbecile scum. The way she says it hits a nerve, and Takashi asks why she always acts like that. Takagi shrugs, saying she hates people who don't even realize how stupid they are. She keeps ranting, but Takashi zones out as his thoughts are elsewhere. That annoys her, and she leaves. He still remembers when Rei told him she'd been giving him signs that she liked him, but he never noticed, and she got tired of waiting. Just then, a loud crash echoes from the school's front gate, where some strange guy is slamming his head against it. 4 teachers rush out. One of them, Miss Hayashi, blessed with her oversized plots, tries to talk him down. The man doesn't respond, so Tajima, one of the male teachers, steps in to restrain him. Just when he thinks he's got it under control, the guy bites him. Mr. Tajima collapses, and as the others rush to help him, he suddenly grabs Miss Hayashi's neck and bites her too. Takashi, having seen the whole thing, runs into the building. All he can think about is Rei, and he doesn't care if he gets yelled at for skipping, as he has to find her. When he does, Rei's new boyfriend Hisashi is already with her. Hisashi asks what's going on, and Takashi bluntly says someone just died at the gate. Rei tries to argue, but Takashi smacks her hard, snapping them back to reality, and they decide to run away. Takashi explains everything he saw, and the 3 of them scramble to find anything they can use as weapons. Still clinging to normalcy, Rei tries calling her dad, a cop, but the police line is jammed. That's when the school's emergency broadcast kicks in. A teacher's voice says violence has broken out, and staff need to evacuate the students. But before he can finish, a horrifying noise cuts him off, his horrific, brutal death live over the mic, which causes all the students to panic. Hisashi tells Takashi they should head to the rooftop, not the stairs, as the stairwells are packed with panicked students, making it a death trap. On the bridge to the rooftop, they run into a teacher, who's already turned. He lunges at Rei, who freezes in fear and tries to get a bite on her marshmallows. Hisashi yells at her to fight, and she does, stabbing him straight through the chest. But even with his heart pierced, the teacher keeps moving, pushing Rei down in a perfect position for him to feast on. Trying to play the hero, Hisashi grabs the man by the neck, trying to save his lover, but the teacher unexpectedly twists and sinks his teeth into Hisashi's arm. Rei stabs him again from behind, and it's still useless, but Takashi realizes the truth that the teacher is already dead, with only hunger in his mind. Rei screams and desperately tries to yank the monster off her boyfriend, begging Takashi to help. Fueled by adrenaline, Takashi charges and decapitates the teacher. Rei doesn't thank him, and she races to Hisashi, who insists he's fine. But then, more screams echo from inside, and the infection is spreading fast all around them. They reach the rooftop, and when they look at the city, all they see is chaos and death. Then, helicopters fly overhead, but not a single one stops to help. Inside the school, everywhere, students are devoured. Some clap themselves before they can turn. Back on the rooftop, Takashi finally accepts that this is something out of a horror movie. They have no idea how it started, but all they can do now is survive. They run towards the top, evading and attacking the undead in their way, but on the staircase, Rei tries to play hero and gets her and her jiggles yeeted into the wall. Hisashi moves fast and quickly saves her before the trio quickly barricades themselves in. By late afternoon, as the sun starts to dip, Hisashi begins to change, spilling out blood from his mouth. Rei refuses to believe it, but Takashi tells her to look around, telling her the reality they're living in. Barely conscious, Hisashi begs Takashi to end him before it's too late, not wanting himself to become one of them. Rei still clings to hope, refusing to believe it's the end, but her prayers are pointless. Then Hisashi is gone and his eyes go cold, but in the next moment he gets up as something else entirely, and the person he was is gone. Takashi grips his weapon tightly, aiming for one shot, and despite Rei's pleas for him to stop, Takashi does what must be done. Afterward, with Hisashi lying lifeless, Rei starts going mad, saying how she would have preferred to die with Hisashi rather than living with Takashi. She starts accusing Takashi of ending Hisashi out of jealousy, saying that he's angry that Hisashi gets to be with her before he does. But Takashi gives no reaction, and after hearing Rei's hurtful words, he walks towards the barricades and starts dismantling them. Rei asks him what he's doing, and Takashi tells her he's doing what she wants, for him to be gone. But Rei begs him to stay, apologizing for her hurtful words. Then, seeing the girl he still loves begging him to stay with her, Takashi caves, and he hugs her tightly, slowly accepting the new reality they're facing. Elsewhere in the school, Takagi is still doing her best with the school's chopped fatty Kauta to escape the undead. Kauta asks Takagi where they're supposed to go now. She throws the question right back at him, and he says he's thinking of heading to the teacher's room. Takagi immediately scolds him, saying the teachers won't be any help in a situation like this. On the bridge, she points out a group of students doing exactly what Kuta suggested, and just as Takagi predicts, the teachers have already turned. Takagi tells him flat that their only goal is to stay alive. Back on the rooftop, Rei is still in shock over Hisashi's death. His body lies in front of them, and a heavy silence hangs in the air until Rei stands understands and says she'll try calling her father again. Takagi hands her his phone. When her father picks up, he recognizes Takagi's number but doesn't realize Rei is the one on the line. He just starts talking, saying the city is in chaos and that Takagi needs to get Rei somewhere safe. Before he can finish what he's saying, the signal cuts out. Rei breaks down crying as even on what might have been her last chance, her father doesn't recognize his own daughter's voice. Meanwhile, Kuta asks Takagi if she brought her phone, and hesitantly says he wanted to call the cops. Takagi sighs, saying that calling the police is pointless now, as everyone's already trying to do the same. She states that if anyone's getting help, it's only the important higher-ups people, and with the government being overwhelmed, no one's coming for them. After that harsh truth, Takagi tells Kuta to run again, and in her head, she's thinking how much she wishes she'd ended up with Takashi instead of this chubby pig. In the clinic, 2 students are already there, and one has turned. The school nurse Shizuka is dumber than bricks and is too slow to realize how screwed she is. She casually gathers medicine, and her overly bouncy figure sways with every step. A student tries to hurry her, but she simply does things relaxingly. Suddenly, the undead bursts in, attacking the student while Shizuka can only watch. As she's about to get eaten, Sayeko, a senior from the kendo club, arrives and cuts the creature down, saving them. But it's too late, and the student's already been bitten. Sayeko asks for his name, then gently tells him that he knows what's coming. She asks if he wants to end it before he turns, and with a weak smile the boy nods. Shizuka protests, but Sayeko interrupts, saying that it's a woman's job to protect a man's dignity, and then she grants his final request. Elsewhere, Takagi is rigging something together using whatever tools she can find. She guesses Kota is into military stuff and asks him to build something. Kota's geek brain kicks in, and ideas start flowing. Just then, undead bang at the door and Takagi panics, but Kota finishes assembling a makeshift weapon, and just as one of the undead breaks through, he's locked and loaded with a nail gun. After clearing a path, Kota asks Takagi why she even brought him along. She shrugs, saying she has no special reason. With no option but to survive, the two begin their own fight. Back on the rooftop, Rei gets an idea to use the fire hose to hold off the undead. Takashi is impressed by Rei's thinking, and she credits Hisashi, then goes quiet, remembering he's gone. Takashi doesn't say anything, but trying to shift the mood. Rei says it's time to get off the rooftop. Rei hands him his baseball bat, as it's time to move out of there. Inside the building, Rei wonders where they should go. Takashi says he wants to find any survivors and take them home. Rei agrees and tells him to call his parents, but Takashi says it doesn't matter, as his dad's out of town, while his mom's a teacher, and he shows no worries in front of Rei, but deep down he's worried sick about them. Elsewhere, Takagi and Kyuta try to distract the undead, and they discover that the undead seem to respond to sound, as they're probably blind now. Meanwhile, Saeko and Shizuka head toward the teacher's room to look for car keys. Saeko, calm and focused, doesn't even bother attacking the undead on the way, and just shoves them aside. Shizuka asks why she's not fighting them off. Saeko explains it takes time, and if they get stuck, they'll have no way out. Then Shizuka trips on a floor mat. While her assets are bouncing as usual, Saeko rips her skirt, saying it's too tight for this kind of situation. Shizuka protests, as it was her Gucci skirt, but Saeko doesn't care. Suddenly, they hear something from the office. It's Kyuta and Takagi, still fighting. Kyuta yells for help, but Takagi just keeps screaming and refusing to help him, so he points out the undead right behind her, and that's when she finally screams. Everyone hears it and rushes over. Uka's almost out of nails, and Takagi's cornered, but she stumbles in front of a trophy shelf and starts throwing trophies. Nothing works, and her big ego isn't helping, until she grabs a drill and drives it into the undead's head. The rest of the group arrives, and with one look, they all move as a unit. Together, they clear the room with the power of friendship. Takagi stands frozen, staring at what she just did with the drill. Rei and Shizuka rush to her, trying to calm her down. Sayeko introduces herself, and everyone follows to do the same, except for Takagi. With her ego still intact, she says introductions are pointless right now. She yells that she's supposed to be the smartest one here, and she shouldn't be acting like this. Sayeko sees the fear in her eyes and gently steps in, telling her it's okay to stop pretending. Takagi finally looks at herself in the mirror, covered in blood, while her ego-full facade slowly fades and she breaks down crying like a little baby. Then, they manage to reach the teacher's room to regroup, and when Kuta tries to check on Takagi, he folds seeing her in glasses and gets scolded for being creepy. They talk about their escape plans and decide that as a group they should use the school bus to save their families. Just then, Rei sees the television, showing the news where it's announced that the whole world is facing the undead outbreak. Takagi grows frustrated, wondering why the government still refuses to explain what's going on with this undead situation. Takagi calmly responds that the government probably doesn't want to cause mass panic, as fear leads to chaos, and that's the last thing they want right now. The group grows uneasy again, and Rei still clings to hope that things might go back to normal eventually, but Takagi quickly shuts that idea down, saying that they're facing a pandemic, and there's no going back. She adds that what they're facing is like the great plagues of the past, except this time there's no cure. Shizuka comments that maybe the heat will make the undead rot faster, and Sayeko asks how long it takes for a dead body to decompose. Shizuka thinks for a second, and says it would take about 20 days in the summer, and longer if it's cold. Takagi cuts in again, asking how they can even tell if the undead are rotting, after seeing the dead they still walk and eat, and no one has an answer. But there's one thing everyone agrees on, that they need to stick together and get out of this school. Sayoko suggests they help any survivors they find, and Takagi adds that the closest exit is through the parking lot gates. The group starts moving. Seiko says they should avoid fights when possible to save energy and time, while Takagi reminds everyone that the undead react to sound. Suddenly, they hear a girl screaming from the stairwell from another group of survivors. Takashi's team jumps into action like a squad. Kota provides cover from a distance while Sayoko, Takashi and Rei go to close range. They regroup and head toward the main lobby, where it's packed with undead. Takagi says hiding is pointless, as they only react to noise. However, they can't stay stuck at school forever, so they need someone to test it out, and Takashi volunteers. Rei tries to stop him, but Sayeko stops her, saying that they shouldn't stop his balls of steel from testing himself. He heads down the stairs and walks right into the crowd of undead. One approaches him, but to his surprise it walks past him. He then tests out Takagi's theory by throwing an object that creates a lot of noise, and when they see that the undead are drawn into it, it confirms Takagi's theory that they only respond to sound. Then, they move silently through the horde to get to the bus. But then, one of the survivors accidentally knocks something over, and the noise draws all the undead toward them. Chaos erupts, and everyone runs. Takagi screams at Takashi for saving the guy who caused the noise, but Rei says it doesn't matter now, and they need to move. One of the survivors gets attacked, and his girlfriend refuses to leave him. Takagi tries to stop her, but she shoves past and runs back to her boyfriend. Takagi doesn't understand why someone would do that, and Shizuka softly says that some people would rather die together in a world this broken. Takagi keeps grumbling about logic, but Kota suddenly shields her from an undead. He doesn't even know why he does it, and Takagi freezes, stunned by the act. Once the path is clear, Shizuka reaches the school bus and takes the driver's seat, while everyone piles in. But before they can leave, another group arrives, led by someone Rei instantly recognizes. Shido, the teacher she despises the most. Suddenly, one student from Shido's group trips and falls, but instead of helping, Shido kicks him aside and steps onto the bus with a creepy grin, saying that the weak don't deserve safety. With everyone on board, Shizuka drops her usual airhead nurse act, convincing herself that the undead are not people, and plows through a crowd of undead like she's driving over potholes. Once they're out, Shido thanks Sayeko and suggests she lead the group, but Sayeko declines. Seeing his opportunity, Shido announces that every group needs a leader, and Rei leans toward Takashi and whispers to him how he's going to regret letting that creep on the bus. They reach the highway and see the city in chaos, where fires rage, buildings crumble, and beaches lie empty. Suddenly, one of Shido's students speaks up, saying that he doesn't want to be in the same group as Takashi. Another student says they should have stayed at school. Annoyed by the complaints, Shizuka slams on the brakes. Her bouncy figure juggles as she spins around and yells at them to shut up as they're disturbing her focus. Sayeko calmly asks the loudmouth what he wants, and he points at Takashi, saying that he wants Takashi off the bus. Kota gets ready to fire his nail gun, but Takagi stops him. Takashi confronts the guy, asking what his problem is, and when he's about to attack Takashi, Rei whacks the guy with her stick. Shido claps, clearly amused by Takashi's group. He starts giving a speech, presenting himself as the ideal candidate for the leader, and somehow, people actually buy into it. Rei's had enough and decides to leave the bus. She claims that she would rather face the undead than spend one more second with that man. Takashi follows her, trying to convince her to stay. But before they can settle anything, another bus crashes in front of the tunnel, loaded with undead. It explodes, blocking the path, separating Takashi and Rei from the others. Sayeko jumps off the bus, checking on their condition, and Takashi yells to the group that they'll meet at the police station at 7 p.m. The group splits again, and Takashi and Rei make their way into the tunnel, just as the fire from the wreck rages behind them. They pause to catch their breath when an undead biker suddenly appears behind Takashi. Before it can bite, Rei smashes its skull with a brick. She helps him up, and using the biker's ride, they drive to the city. As they drive, Takashi can't help but think about how normal everything was just hours ago, and now his school, friends, and everyday life are gone. Now he's escaped from rooftops, made unlikely allies, and survived complete chaos. Rei breaks the silence, asking if he thinks that anyone's coming to save them, and Takashi shakes his head, saying that no one's coming. Rei sighs and complains, saying he's always so negative, but Takashi just shrugs, claiming that he's being real with no sugarcoating, as lies don't help out here. Rei wants to argue more, but before she can say another word, her raised voice draws the attention of nearby undead. Takashi revs the bike, and they speed off. Meanwhile, back on the bus, Shizuka's stuck on a bridge. The group starts to fracture where Sayeko sticks with their core team, while Shido gathers his students around him, already charming the girls with fake promises and slimy sweet talk. Back in the city, Takashi and Rei pass through empty streets where the people either fled or have turned into the undead. They spot a deserted police car and stop. Rei digs through it for weapons, anything they can use to stay alive. She finds a gun, which she hands to Takashi, and he sees that it's loaded. They grab what they can and hit the road again, this time searching for a gas station, as they need fuel if they want to keep going. Eventually they find one, but it's automated using a credit card only. Takashi didn't bring money, and Rei left her wallet back at school, which leaves them one option, robbing a minimart. Takashi goes inside and bashes the cash register for some money, while Rei stands outside with the bike, reflecting on how insane the day has become. Suddenly, someone grabs her from behind, and Takashi rushes out of the store to find a large, wild-eyed man holding a knife to Rei's neck. Completely unhinged, he tells them he watched his whole family turn and that he had to clap them dead himself. Now he's alone, desperate, and he wants a piece of Rei. With sausage-like fingers gripping her tightly, he starts touching her inappropriately, taunting Takashi. He demands that Takashi drop the baseball bat and fill up his motorcycle's tank, and if he tries anything, Rei is cooked. Takashi purposefully tosses the bat aside, letting it clatter loudly against the concrete to draw attention. Then slowly, he starts pumping gas, buying time and thinking hard, while his hand inches toward the hidden gun he stashed earlier. The man keeps ranting, raising his voice and loosening his grip on the knife, and Takashi sees his moment. He lunges forward, gun in hand, and aims for the man's chest. The guy just laughs. He dares Takashi to shoot, claiming the whole gas station will blow. But there's no hesitation in Takashi's eyes, as he refuses to have a chopped-looking dude have his hands on his girl, so he pulls the trigger. The shot cracks through the night air, echoing across the city, and it's loud enough to attract nearby undead. Rei wants to go back and finish the guy off, but Takashi stops her, as that gunshot already did enough and they need to leave. They hop on the bike and speed off, leaving the man bleeding in place as the undead begin to close in, and they disappear into the city. By the next morning at the airport, the last private plane is prepping for takeoff. From a distance, two snipers cover the landing zone, both mercenaries. One of them, a woman named Rika, ranks among the top 5 snipers in the country, and they've been hired to secure the area for a group of VIPs escaping the chaos. The guy tries to rizz up Rika, offering to massage her sore assets, but she brushes him off, as she's more interested in going back and reuniting with her lady friend Shizuka. Meanwhile, the bus is still stuck on the bridge waiting for a way across, while Shido rambles like this is some kind of school field trip, telling everyone to stay quiet, hide, avoid contacting family, and trust the team like he's some kind of expert. Not far away, Kuda naps peacefully until Takagi abruptly wakes him up. She asks which way they should go, and Kuda figures maybe the outskirts of town. But Takagi points to the sky, toward the airplane, saying how lots of people will be heading out of the city to islands or military zones in the mountains. Kuta guesses Okinawa might be a destination, and Takagi adds that places like Hokkaido or Kyushu could also be options. But reaching them won't be easy, because if the government or military already set up bases, they'll probably restrict entry to prevent infected outsiders from getting in. And everyone will be looking out for their own, just like Shido, who's trying to build his own twisted community by sweet-talking students, especially the girls, into following him. Kuta gets serious and offers to handle Shido himself, but Takagi stops him, saying it's not worth it and that they should focus on getting across the city. She then murmurs under her breath, hoping Takashi is safe. Kota hears it and casually teases her for liking Takashi. Takagi instantly denies it, but it's too late. Sayeko and Shizuka have already heard her, and both of them look a little concerned, as Takashi and Rei are still out there. Across the city, things are getting worse. Gangs roam the streets, causing chaos. Takashi and Rei have to speed through a shootout just to avoid getting caught. Their goal is to cross the bridge, but the crowds and violence make it impossible, so Takashi drives off and searches for another route. At the main bridge, panic is already spreading, as the undead have arrived. The military tries to keep order, but people aren't listening anymore. In desperation, the soldiers block all vehicles and threaten punishment for anyone causing trouble. Just then, a few students rush the checkpoint, bypassing the rules that the soldiers have put, but because of it, they get blasted off the bridge by a water cannon. Back on the bus, Shido is completely unhinged, still ranting about leadership with full delusion. Soeko has had enough, calling him a cult leader, and Takagi agrees. She looks around at the other students, all hypnotized by Shido's fake confidence and creepy charisma. Soeko says they need to leave the bus if they want to reach the police station and meet up with Takashi. Takagi hesitates, then awkwardly asks Sayeko why she seems more worried about Takashi than her own family. Sayeko answers calmly that she only has her father and he's overseas, so right now what matters is her safety and keeping her promise to meet Takashi. Shizuka jumps in and asks where everyone lives. Takagi says she and Takashi are neighbors. Kota laughs and shares that his family is scattered all over, where his dad is in Amsterdam, his mom is in Paris, his grandpa is captaining a cruise ship, and is busy clapping his grandma. Shizuka smiles and says she's sticking with this group. As her parents are gone, her siblings are out of town, and most importantly, she hates Shido. Everyone agrees, and they set out a plan to walk to the other bridge. Shido notices them moving and tries to stop them, but Takagi shuts him down immediately, telling them that her group doesn't need him. Shido's creepy Joker smile returns as he turns to Shizuka, saying that they need a nurse in their group. When he steps closer, Kota fires his gun as a warning shot that grazes Shido's cheek. Shido explodes in rage, but Kota cuts him off, as Shido always treats him like trash, but now that there's no school and no rules, Kota can shoot him whenever he wants. With that, Sayeko, Shizuka, Takagi, and Kota step off the bus, leaving Shido behind. Elsewhere, Takashi and Rei are stuck at another bridge, caught in a traffic jam. The road ahead is closed, and time is running out, as they need to reach the police station. Suddenly, they hear gunfire, and Takashi recognizes the sound immediately. It's Kota firing his guns, and the group is trapped on the bridge. Takashi revs the engine, and goes full fast and furious, screaming out family, and launches onto the bridge, landing right where the others are pinned down. Rei jumps into the fight, and Takashi tosses his gun to Kota and charges in with Sayako. The two team up, moving in sync to take down the last of the undead with their teamwork. Once the dust settles, Rei runs straight into Shizuka's arms, burying her face first in her soft, pillowy assets. Takashi checks on Seiko, asking if everyone's okay, but both Takagi and Rei don't like seeing her that close to him. Meanwhile, Kota is ecstatic, as he finally has a real gun in his hands. With the sun beginning to set and the police station still far off, they need shelter, and that's when Shizuka remembers her friend Rika, who has a place nearby. So the group decides to head there, and Takashi drives them one by one on the bike. When it's Shizuka's turn, in her usual clueless charm, she has no concept of personal space, giving Takashi a very up-close and unforgettable experience with a real woman's body. Late that night, the chaos keeps growing. Everyone now knows the undead virus is a global crisis, while the government can't handle the flood of people rushing to shelters anymore. Meanwhile, the group finally makes it inside the apartment, and the girls immediately take over the bathroom, eager to clean up together. For them, it's like a slice of heaven, where there's hot water, clean towels, and actual shampoo. They play with the water, laughing and messing around like it's paradise in the middle of hell. Meanwhile, the guys only get to enjoy the heavenly sounds coming from behind the door. Takashi and Kota are busy trying to open one of the safes they find in the apartment, and inside they discover a stash of ammo, and in the second safe, 3 weapons. Kota's eyes light up like it's Christmas morning. Kota, practically drooling, says that they are all completely illegal, as with all this firepower, and now it's in his hands. While Kota geeks out over the weapons, Takashi casually picks one up and points it at him. Kota instantly freaks out, yelling for him not to point guns at people, even if they're unloaded. But then, they both fall silent. It hits them that they're not just fighting the undead anymore, but it is now a war zone. Kota mutters that there will be no more negotiating, and they shoot to survive. They load the rifles and stash the rest of the ammo. Kota casually mentions that he trained in the US for a month with an ex-Delta Force soldier, and Takashi stares at him, part impressed, part horrified, saying how happy he is that they're friends. He glances around the apartment, questioning who Shizuka's friend is to even have all this gear at home. Koto explains that technically it's not illegal to buy the parts separately, as it only becomes a crime when you assemble them. He adds that Shizuka once said her friend was part of the special assault team, but cops usually live in dorms, and if this friend has a private apartment like this, then they're seriously loaded. From the bathroom, the girls' laughter gets louder. Kata looks nervous that the undead might hear their noise, but Takashi reassures him, saying that the loudest place that will attract them is the bridge. Meanwhile, at the bridge, people are still trying to force their way into shelters. Riots break out, protesters scream for answers about the origin of the virus. The police receive direct orders: protect the shelters and the bridge at all costs. When rioters push past the barricades, an officer asks for confirmation, and the order is clear. Takashi and Kauta use binoculars to watch, but when it's Kauta's turn, he spots a news crew and tells Takashi to turn on the TV. The news shows the protests where people accuse the government of using quarantine as a cover-up to keep the shelters exclusive. Flyers are being passed around claiming the virus is a bioweapon, but no one knows the truth. Takashi frowns at that statement, as while in games and movies, it's always some bioweapon, this one feels like a conspiracy theory. Back at the bridge, the undead close in and the police open fire. A woman runs with her daughter, begging the officers not to shoot, but her daughter's already turned. She bites her mother, and just like that, following their order, the officers have no choice but to pull the trigger. One man won't stop screaming, accusing the cops of murder. The police chief confronts him, calmly asks him to back off twice. When the man refuses again, the chief pulls out his pistol and shoots him dead, following the order of controlling the chaos at all costs. For a moment, everything goes quiet. Then the broadcast cuts out. Takashi shuts off the TV, and he wants to get out of here, but Kauta shakes his head, telling him that it's too risky at night. Suddenly, Shizuka comes crawling in from behind, drunk and giggling, and crashes right into Takashi. Her generous assets smother him, as she plants a kiss on his cheek. He tries to stop her, but his hands land somewhere they shouldn't, causing Shizuka to make happy noises before he finally pulls away. Still completely out of it, Shizuka changes her focus toward Kuta, and kisses him on the cheek too, causing his brain to fry crispy on the spot. Takashi sighs and carries her to her room, thinking that if this were a different situation, he would make a teacher-student movie right there. But just as he says that out loud, Rei catches him, with Shizuka draped over his back. Rei, also drunk, leans in with a dazed expression, and mumbles something about seeing 3 of him before collapsing to the floor. She starts crying, whispering about her dad and Hisashi. Takashi gently tucks Shizuka into bed, pulls the blanket over her, and just when he thinks things can't get any more plotful, He spots Takagi asleep on the couch, her assets barely contained, threatening to spill out. Takashi goes to the fridge to grab something to eat, not noticing Sayeko cooking behind him, saying that she's cooking dinner. When he turns around, he freezes, seeing her wearing only an apron, which is a dream costume for all men to see their wives in. Completely calm, Sayeko explains that she couldn't find anything else that fit, so she wore this. Takashi stares, saying how it's a little risky, but Sayeko brushes him off, saying how she trusts him and Kuta. Just then, loud stomping echoes from the stairs, and when they look, it's Rei, who's still drunk, and is now demanding Takashi's attention. Sayeko lets him go to her, telling him to keep the belly burping quiet. Then Rei rambles about Hisashi, how sweet he was and how affectionate. She says Takashi's too blunt, unlike Hisashi, and he stays quiet, hands her a drink, and asks if she's tired. It angers her, and Rei explodes again, calling him insensitive, unlike Hisashi. Takashi finally loses it, refusing to be compared to a dead guy, and acknowledges that while he'll never be Hisashi, he's the only one she has. Stunned, Rei stares at him in silence. Her teary eyes lock onto his, and in that moment she kisses him. While everyone is sleeping safely inside their sanctuary, the outside world just keeps getting worse with people panicking, and the undead feasting on them. After his kissing session, Takashi checks on Kauta, who's already in position with his sniper rifle, watching the waves of undead pouring into the streets below approaching their place. Outside, an NPC is desperately trying to fight off the undead with his gun, but ends up dying. Sayeko hears the gunshots and quickly joins the boys to see what's going on. Takashi is already fired up, ready to shoot them to save the people below, but Sayeko stops him. She reminds him that shooting will only attract the undead to their building, and that other survivors might see their lights and think it's a safe place. She tells Takashi to look again at how wrecked the city is. Takashi pauses, as there's something different about Sayeko tonight, and she turns to him and says maybe he wants to be a hero, but she's just trying to be realistic. Takashi steps back onto the balcony to look with the binoculars. Down below, people are doing whatever they can to find shelter, even if it means fighting for it. Among those people, Takashi watches one man desperately carrying his daughter from door to door, begging for somewhere safe to stay. She asks her father where Mom is, and the man calms her daughter, saying that Mom is in a better place. He tries knocking on one house for shelter, begging to at least let his daughter in, but no one opens up. Out of desperation, he threatens to break down the door to get his child in, and only then does someone finally answer. But suddenly, out of fear, the homeowner stabs the man in the heart, right there on the porch, and the door slams shut, leaving the dying man and his little girl alone. She doesn't even understand what just happened. But even in his last moments, the man calms his daughter down, telling her to hide. The girl starts crying, confused and terrified, begging her father to come back. Her screams begin to draw the undead, and Takashi can't take it anymore. Kauta already has the sniper aimed, and saves her with his shot, while picking off the undead to clear a path. Takashi calls her out about him shooting, and Kauta refuses to let the girl die, which Takashi agrees to. He goes downstairs to get her, and on his way he runs into Rail, who wants to go with him. Takashi orders her to guard the gate, and Sayeko pops up, respecting his determination and wishing him luck. Before leaving, Reo hands him the handgun and shares a quiet moment together. Then, with the girl's help, Takashi grabs his bike and heads out, while Kauta watches his back from above. The rescue mission begins, and Takashi speeds through the streets on his bike, ramming into the undead while Kauta guides him from a distance with his precise sniper shots. When Takashi reaches the girl, his bike slips, leaving him without transportation. But he focuses on the girl with Kauta's cover. Takashi manages to get to the girl and a random dog. He continues to clean down the house when suddenly an undead pops up, forcing him to use his gun, and draws the undead's attention. Meanwhile, Takagi wakes up from the gunfire. Realizing the undead might start swarming soon, she rushes to wake Shizuka. Still half-dressed, Shizuka stumbles out of bed, and Kauta gets a front-row view he'll never forget. Takagi, unfazed, tells him to get ready to leave the building. The girls gather downstairs, and Sayeko announces it's time that they're getting in the car and pick Takashi up, as the undead are already following the noise he's made. Back on Takashi's side, he manages to lock the gate behind him to keep the undead out. The father's body still lies there, and Takashi covers his face and gives him a flower as a sign of respect for his final burial. He whispers to the girl that her father died protecting his daughter, and that he was a hero. The girl cries one last time, saying goodbye to her father. She leans on Takashi now, asking what they should do and how they can get out. Takashi doesn't have an answer, but then he sees a gate wall where they might escape. Meanwhile, Sayeko and the others are loading up the gear into the Humvee, but Kauta spots Takashi and the girl moving on top of the wall, avoiding the undead. He tells himself not to look down to calm down his nerves, but in the middle of it the dog licks him, and the little girl tells him that she needs to pee. He asks her to hold it in, but she begs him to let her go, so he lets her relieve herself right on his back. As Takashi reaches the edge, the Humvee comes tearing down the street. Sayeko stands tall on the roof, looking mommy as fudge, while Kota covers from below. Shizuka drives like a maniac straight through the horde. They pull up just in time, and Sayeko leaps down and starts slicing a path open with her sword, while Kota snipes over her shoulder with deadly precision. Takashi scoops up the girl, sprints, and jumps into the vehicle. Then, they head to the next part of the city to find safety. The next day, the Humvee cruises down by the river. The little girl's name turns out to be Alice, and she immediately clings to Kuta. It's now Kuta and Takagi's turn to keep watch, while Takashi, Rei, and Sayeko finally get some rest. As they near the end of the river path, Shizuka gently wakes everyone up. Rei is the first to open her eyes, and at first she smiles, realizing she's been leaning on Takashi. But her smile vanishes the moment she sees Sayeko drooling on his creamy cannoli. Her mood flips, and she pinches Takashi right in the cheek. That pinch snaps him awake, and as he processes what's happening, his heart nearly stops, especially once Rei points out what he's got on his lap. Sayeko starts waking up too, and her apron barely hides anything until she sits up properly. The Humvee comes to a stop under the main bridge. Shizuka pulls out some clothes she'd taken from her friend's place, and the girls start changing. Meanwhile, Takashi and Kota stand guard on the other side. While they wait, Kota hands a gun to Takashi, as he figures he might need it soon. He quickly walks him through how to use it. Just as the explanation wraps up, the girls finish changing, and now they're prepared in their own way. Takashi and Kota are both left speechless. Rei, now showing off her own gun, catches Takashi's concern, but quickly brushes it off, saying Kota already taught her how to use it. Takashi and Kota move out to check the main street. It's quiet with no undead in sight or people. The road's clear, and Shizuka drives the Humvee back up onto the streets. Even though there are no signs of life, Rao quietly hopes her father is still out there. The closest house belongs to Takagi's family, and Takagi doesn't expect much, but she still wants to check. Shizuka drives along the main road, while Takashi and Rao stay on top of the Humvee, keeping watch. Takashi notices there are no choppers flying over the city anymore, and Rao points out they haven't seen any undead since they left the river. It gives them a feeling of normalcy for a little while, until Kota spots a massive horde of the undead straight ahead. Takashi quickly directs Shizuka to another route, guiding them to avoid the mob. But no matter which street they take, more undead block the way. Shizuka starts panicking, trying to weave through the streets, until they end up under another bridge. That's when Rei sees an iron wire stretched across the road, and Shizuka can't stop in time. The Humvee stops, and Rei is thrown off the roof, landing hard on the pavement. Takashi jumps down to help. He tries using his gun for the first time, but misses his first few shots. Kota gives him quick instructions, and soon he's landing solid hits. Kota and Sayoko rush forward to clear a path. As Takashi starts getting the hang of the gun, he runs out of bullets. He reaches into his pocket, but his hands fumble and the ammo slips through his fingers, so now he's empty-handed. Panic sets in, and for a moment he thinks it's over. He pulls Rei close, shielding her, but then remembers that Rei has a gun. With no better option, Takashi uses her thick body as a support and rests the gun on her, firing at the undead closing in. Between the bullets and Sayeko's elegant, deadly movements, it feels like the animation team goes all out animating with one hand for the jiggle physics. Alice, though still a kid, tries to help. Her hands tremble as she passes bullets to Kota, and seeing her like that, Kota makes up his mind that he's clearing the path no matter what. Takagi finally jumps in too, trying to act brave and fire a shot. Everyone is doing their best to fight back, but all the noise draws more and more undead, and by the time the sun starts to set, they still haven't found a way out, while bullets are depleting quickly. Then, suddenly, Zeke, the dog, leaps from the Humvee and starts attacking the undead. Seeing that, Takashi knows he can't stay back. When Takagi tries to shoot again, Takashi stops her, takes her gun, and tells her to wait with Rei. With Sayeko at his side, Takashi charges into the crowd, drawing the horde away. As the bait, they make noise, pulling the undead away from the group. But it's barely working, as more keep coming towards the Humvee. Meanwhile, Kota tells Alice to crawl under the wires and get to safety, and he promises they'll follow after they clean up the undead. But Alice shakes her head, as she has seen enough. She remembers her father's promises, and how he said everything would be okay, but he still died and she ended up alone. Alice cries, begging not to be left behind, and she wants to stay with them, no matter what. In that dying moment, just when it seems like all hope is lost, a group of fully armored soldiers appears and starts firing at the undead, clearing them out. Everyone is saved, and Shizuka runs up to the one who looks like the leader and thanks them for the rescue. Their leader takes off her helmet, revealing herself as Takagi's mother. With Takagi's mother and her team saving the group from death, only Sayeko and Takashi are left behind. Before parting, Takagi promises she'll wait for them at her house. So now the two try to find a way back to rejoin the others at Takagi's place. The sun hangs low in the sky, and with every corner they turn, they run into more undead. That's when Takashi remembers that they passed a vehicle showroom earlier, and he gets an idea. At the showroom, Takashi considers grabbing a motorcycle, but when he brings it up, Sayeko teases him, saying it's like they're dating. Takashi catches what she means and just chuckles. They continue searching and eventually find a special vehicle that can run both on land and water. Takashi jumps behind the wheel and heads toward the river, clearly with a plan in mind. He drives down to the riverbank, and as they descend, the undead begin tumbling down the stairs after them. Takashi feels a brief moment of triumph, thinking they're safe. But Sayako quickly points out it's not that simple, and the undead are still moving. They drive straight into the river to escape, and as the vehicle splashes into the water, a huge wave hits them. Sayako ends up soaked, and Takashi, completely caught off guard, freezes, turning into a total robot, unable to form a single coherent word at the sight of such a beautiful figure. With the sun setting and undead still lurking near the riverbank, Takashi steers them toward a small island-like patch in the middle of the river. He suggests that they rest there overnight. But then Sayako sneezes, as her wet clothes are making her cold. Takashi, struggling to keep his eyes focused, realizes she needs something dry to wear. Without thinking too hard, he grabs his own sleeveless shirt and hands it to her, just until hers dries. When she wears his clothes, Takashi gets flustered and excited, unsure how to act in front of Sayako. To break the tension, he awkwardly asks if Sayako likes someone, and to his surprise, she says that she does. She changes the subject by suggesting that they leave, and he agrees. They keep moving and arrive at a park. Takashi drives the vehicle into the fountain and rigs it to the central structure. He holds down the gas pedal, making it spin in circles like a noisy carousel, creating a sound loud enough to attract the undead to the fountain and lure them away from the streets. Sayako understands right away. She leaps out of the vehicle and dashes into the horde, fighting like the true samurai she is. Her movements are fast, sharp, deadly, almost like she's enjoying it. That is, until she faces a young undead, and she freezes. Takashi sees something's wrong and rushes over. The moment he sees the child, he doesn't hesitate and shoots, and then pulls Sayako away. They take shelter in a nearby shrine. Takashi asks why she froze, but Sayako doesn't answer, and she collapses onto the floor, silent. Takashi doesn't press. Instead, he says they'll wait there until morning. He lights a candle and looks around, finding a real katana resting on a table. Still getting no response from her. He also prepares some dry clothes for her and waits behind a curtain while she changes. A heavy silence fills the space, and Takashi understands that Sayako needs her space. Then, trying to lighten it up, Takashi hands her a wet tissue and softly says it's for her to clean up. His small comment finally makes Sayako smile and laugh a little. After a while, Sayako speaks and asks Takashi why he didn't question her. Takashi simply replies that he won't ask if she can't answer. Slowly, Sayako begins to open up. She brings up Takashi's earlier question about liking someone, and while she admits she does have someone she likes, she says she doesn't deserve to. She begins explaining her past. She says she was once attacked by a stranger in the middle of the night, and she fought back, broke his legs, and shattered his ribs. But she tells Takashi that's not what haunts her, as what really haunts her is that she enjoyed it. The violence, the dominance, the release, and it made her feel like a monster, which gave her pleasure. Takashi says he kind of gets it, as he also feels a twisted satisfaction when butchering the undead. But Sayako insists it's not the same, and that she was already broken before any of this when she enjoyed crippling a human's life. But earlier, in the park, when she saw that young undead, she froze because it reminded her of the truth that she's a monster, no different from the thing in front of her. Takashi doesn't have the perfect words, but he holds her hand, then gently kisses her before clapping her through the night. The next morning, as they're getting ready to leave, a fresh wave of undead starts closing in on the shrine. Takashi calls out to Sayako, but she's still lost in thought, trapped by what they did the night before. So he does what he feels he must. He holds her and grips her tightly in a way that stirs the woman inside her, in order to bring back the Sayako who never hesitated. It works, and she whispers her thanks while the fire returns to her eyes. However, unlike before this time, with a real katana in hand, the true monster inside Sayako awakens. She fights clean, fast, and deadly, relishing every strike. She cuts through the horde like a storm, and once they're clear, Takashi leads her toward Takagi's house, through the back door. There, Zeke starts barking, and the other rejoice at their return, not knowing that Takashi has unleashed and accepted the darkness inside Sayako during their passionate night together. It feels like the universe is on Takashi's side. After spending a night with Sayako, he now finds himself in yet another unexpected moment, with Rei and her whole situation. Rei is about to get a back massage after falling off the Humvee the day before, and Shizuka asks Takashi to help hold Rei during the session, which gets him to see and hear all her happy noises. After the treatment, Rei kicks him out of the room, scolding him and complaining that her chest still hurts because of him. Downstairs, Takashi runs into Sayako, who has now changed into a yukata. Things are still a little awkward between them, but they both laugh it off. Then Alice appears. Takashi tells her he's glad she's okay now, remembering how she cried herself to sleep next to Shizuka. But the peace breaks quickly when voices start rising, as Takagi and her mother are arguing. When Takashi asks what's going on, Takagi snaps at him, annoyed that he still calls her by her family name. Takagi's mother apologizes for her daughter's attitude, but Takashi says it's fine and personally thanks her for letting everyone stay at the house. Meanwhile, Takagi approaches Kuta, who's still working on his guns. She tells him straight that they can't stay here much longer, as the house is running low on resources. Water and electricity are already stretched thin. At the same time, Takagi's mother is telling Takashi the same thing. The military has taken control of utilities, stepping in without waiting for government orders. As for the people seeking shelter at her estate, she says only those willing to fight can remain. She asks Takashi to help Takagi understand this and make her see reason. Back in the garage, one of the adult workers spots Kauta with his guns and tells him that students aren't allowed to handle weapons. Kauta looks like he's about to crumble under the dude's pressure, but Takagi steps in right away, defending him, and the man backs off, realizing he's facing his master's daughter. Afterward, Takagi points out how adults still see them as just students, and no matter what they've been through, the grown-ups won't take them seriously. The group gathers for a meeting in Rei's room. Since she still can't walk, and Takagi refuses to waste more time, she asks everyone directly whether they should stay together or split up. Hearing that, Sayoko understands that under the protection of Takagi's powerful family, there are only two options, and that they either join in or get out. Takashi asks why they have to split up at all, and not just stay here and rely on Takagi's parents, knowing they have the resources and security. But then Takagi snaps. She shouts that her parents are great people, great leaders, so great that they forgot their own daughter, as all they care about is protecting their image and their followers. Takashi grabs her by the collar, eyes burning with frustration. He tells her she should be grateful that she still has parents, still has a home, while the rest of them don't even know if their families are alive and kicking. His words hit hard, and Takagi falls silent. Takashi lets go before she can say anything else. Then a loud commotion erupts outside. It's Takagi's father, arriving with a container truck. Surrounded by his followers, who are people he's led into the estate, he drags out one of the undead and introduces it to everyone as his former friend. Then, to everyone's shock, he decapitates it in front of everyone to prove a point. He declares that if they want to survive, everyone must fight, even if it's against their former loved ones. Silence falls, and no one dares object to him. Back inside, Kuta finally speaks. He mutters that a sword isn't enough, as while it can cut through bone, after 3 bodies it becomes useless. However, in contrast, Sayoko replies calmly that she believes swords can work if they're of good quality and in skilled hands. Kuta suddenly lashes out and storms off. Takashi chases after him, but loses him in the hallway. Alice, noticing the panic, offers to help. Knowing that she and Kuta are friends, Takashi nods and lets her go, believing that the little girl can calm him down. But minutes later, Alice comes running back, panicked, saying that Kuta is in trouble. Elsewhere, Takagi searches for Kuta too, but instead finds Sayoko sitting silently by the koi pond. Takagi, never one to hold back, makes a comment. Sayoko stands up, saying she's not in the mood. Takagi tells her the truth that they won't have the luxury of calm for long, as their peaceful days are ending. She adds that, in the end, they'll have to fight, either alongside her parents or as their own group. Meanwhile, back with Kamta, some of the adult workers have caught him and are trying to take his guns, saying students aren't allowed to be armed. But Kamta begs, saying that the weapons are all he has. The situation grows tense, and the workers are ready to take him by force. Takashi arrives just behind them, but before he can step in, Takagi's father appears. He demands to know what's going on. The workers explain that Kamta's weapons are illegal, and students shouldn't have access to them. Takagi's father looks directly at Kauta and asks for his name. With trembling hands and a shaky voice, Kauta gives his full name, even his class. He begs him not to take his guns, saying that they're the only thing he's good at. Takagi's father has just one question, and asks Kauta his worth. Before Kauta can answer, Takashi steps forward and shouts that Kauta's worth is that he can protect his daughter. Recognizing Takashi, the man pauses and listens. Takashi continues that Kauta has saved Takagi more times than he can count. Then Sayoko adds her voice, testifying that she has seen Kauta's tremendous gun skill firsthand. One by one, the rest of the group steps forward. All of them stand behind Kauta. Lastly, Takagi steps up. With a steady, unwavering voice, she declares that only Kauta and her friends have ever protected me, not her perfect parents. Days later, behind the scenes, one of the students who had been with Shido is still lurking around. He reports everything about Takashi's group back to Shido, who is now comfortable playing the leader of his twisted little degenerate cult. Back in the survivor tent, Takagi stops sugarcoating things. She bluntly states that the government has no idea what's happening, so they're covering it all up to avoid mass panic. The adults don't take what she said well, and they argue with her, refusing to believe that the dead are actually walking. To them, it's just some new virus, something that still has a cure. Takagi challenges them, questioning that if they're so sure, then who among them will step up and prove it? To no one's surprise, no one answers, and no one even tries. Takagi states that she agrees with her father's policy that no one should get bitten, and if they encounter the undead, it has to be shoot on sight. But the adults still aren't ready to face reality. One woman claims it's all a power play by Takagi's parents, where they're using fear to control the masses and using dumb students to provoke others into fighting the undead. which she believes to still be sick but innocent people. Takagi, Kota, and Takashi can barely believe what they're hearing. They say nothing, deciding it's pointless to argue with people who refuse to open their eyes. Initially, Takagi only wanted to explain, but now, she's furious. She mutters that these people just don't want to see the truth. Kota says he kind of understands, as people tend to ignore what they don't want to deal with. That even when they know the truth deep down, they'd rather pretend it isn't real. Takashi gets it too, as it's like when he didn't want to accept Rei being happy with her ex. But Takagi tells him that it's not the time for wishful thinking. Kota agrees that the real issue is that the adults keep trying to make things feel normal, even though nothing in the world is normal anymore. Takagi adds that they just can't admit their own mistakes, and Kota nods, as everything they've been through, from the school to now, has taught him that learning from failure is the only way to move forward. Takashi acknowledges his own mistakes too, but as he speaks, Takagi and Kota smile at him. They tell him the group has already decided that he's their leader now. Meanwhile, Sayeko meets Takagi's father, who in the past was the student of her father, whose family comes from a long, honorable lineage. Takagi's father presents her with a katana, and Sayeko immediately recognizes its value. She tries to respectfully return it, but he laughs and hands it over anyway, as it's a gift of gratitude for her father, and for saving Takagi. Sayeko humbly says she wasn't the only one, and that Takagi has also been a crucial part of their survival. She states that if he truly wants to protect his daughter, he should stand by her side. She adds that if he really wants to give the katana away, he should give it to Takashi. Takagi's father agrees, but he believes that Takashi still isn't stable enough to lead. Elsewhere, Takashi questions whether he's the right person to lead, and that's when Rei enters the room and tells him it suits him, saying that he's a good man. Takashi scoffs, saying that he's just surviving, just helping out like a support character in a game, where Sayeko, Kota, and Rei are the fighters. Takagi's the brain, Shizuka's the healer, and Alice is just Alice. Rei laughs. She says that girls usually go for the cute or affectionate types, and Takashi's neither of them. But she admits that sometimes he's clueless, while sometimes he's brave. She adds that he doesn't always have a reason, but he still does the right thing, which she likes. Then Rek confesses that she regrets not seeing his worth sooner, and now she doesn't want to leave his side, even if someday Takashi falls for someone else, as she still wants to be there beside him. Her honesty catches him off guard, and the steamy tension between them rises. Takashi pushes her down on the bed, and things get intense and sweaty between them. 10 pumps later, she quickly gets up and says she needs to see Shizuka for a checkup, asking him to think about what she just said. As she opens the door, Sayeko is waiting outside, and she mentions that she gave them a little privacy for some plot progression, knowing that Takashi was going ham. Rek brushes her off, still feeling the heat and leftover vibe from the night Sayeko and Takashi spent together. Meanwhile, Shido and his cult make their move. One of the girls seduces a guard, opening a path into Takagi's family's mansion. At the same time, Takashi decides to search for Rei's parents. He doesn't know where to start, as his own father is in another city, and his mother had been at school when everything went down. But he knows that Rei's dad is a police officer, and her mom might still be hiding at home. Takagi's father warns Takashi that his family and group plan to leave in 2 days, as it's too dangerous to stay longer. Takashi promises they'll be back before then, but if they aren't, he tells them to just move on without them. When Takashi and Rei are about to leave, Sayeko steps in, deciding to go with them. The others also come to say goodbye, but before they can do anything, Rei freezes. Shido has arrived, escorted by one of the guards who thought he was friendly, and he's still full of smug arrogance. The guard praises him as a teacher who saved his students, but behind that fake smile, Shido is nothing more than the product of a broken home and a twisted upbringing. In the past, he was paid off by a local corrupt mayor who hated Rei's father for being full of justice, so Shido was ordered to ensure that Rei failed a class, and since that day, Rei hates him deeper than hell itself. The moment she sees him, she charges, gun in hand, knife pointing, ready to stab him in the face. Shido goes quiet. He asks Rei when she knows how to use a gun. She replies coldly that it was her father who taught her, the same man whose reputation Shido destroyed. Rei reveals that she stayed quiet all this time because her father promised he'd bring Shido to justice. But now, with him right in front of her, she's ready to send him off to hell. At that moment, full of chadness aura, Takashi's father walks in. He tells Rei that this is a free world, so if she wants to clap Shido dead, she can do it. Takashi tries to stop her, but Sayeko holds him back, saying that this is Rei's decision. Shido tries to manipulate her, telling her to pull the trigger, so she'll live with the guilt of being a murderer. But being the bigger person, Rei doesn't fall for it. She says even if he dies here, it won't give him any worth as he will still be worth less than dirt. She walks away with her head high, while Takagi's father gives the order that Shido and his cult are to get back on their bus and leave the mansion. Somewhere far beyond the walls of the estate, chaos only escalates, as countries blame one another and tensions rise. Among the decisions the leaders make, some decide it's time to go back to the Stone Age, and they shoot nuclears at each other. Back on land, Shizuka suddenly lights up as she remembers her friend's phone number. The one with the apartment, the Humvee, and a stash of guns, Rika. To her relief, Rika answers and Shizuka immediately bursts into tears, overwhelmed that her friend is still alive, and starts rambling about everything she's been through. Rika, currently stuck at the airport, barely gets a word in before an explosion lights up the sky where missiles detonate mid-air. A blinding flash spreads across the country, causing power to go out, signals to die, and machines to fail. Takagi suspects it's an EMP, a high-altitude nuclear explosion. She explains the science that the gamma rays create electrons from the atmosphere, triggering the Compton effect, and the Earth's magnetic field spreads the pulse everywhere. Or in simple terms, every electronic device is fried crispy. The impact is immediate, and Shido's bus loses control and crashes at the end of the road, tearing down a barricade, leaving Takagi's family estate exposed to the undead. Takagi's father quickly calls for a plan. Takagi points out that older vehicles, especially ones with minimal electronics, could still work if their parts are replaced. Her calm response and quick thinking make her father proud. At the gates, the undead begin to surge. Takagi's father orders them locked, and Kuta helps take down one that gets too close, prompting one of the adults who had once tried to take his gun to apologize. Meanwhile, Takagi's mother prepares for battle in her own way. Dropping all of her swag, she tears her dress at the thighs for better mobility, and Kuta can't help but be a simp to this hot mommy. She gives Takagi a gun, revealing that she once trained in executive defense while working on Wall Street, and that she's even better than her husband. She asks Kota to teach Takagi how to use it, and he lights up with excitement. The front gate finally breaks down, with the undead flooding in. The group retreats into the building, while the other survivors, still clinging to the belief that this is just some curable virus, finally face the horrifying truth and are feasted on. Takashi takes the right flank. Sayeko moves gracefully through the horde, and when one gets too close, Rei steps in to cover her. From above, Kota snipes as always, and Alice also steps up, bravely carrying ammo that is heavier than her whole body. But despite their best efforts, or how well they fight, the undead just keep coming. Takagi's father organizes those still willing to stand and fight, while women and children are moved to a bus for evacuation. A guard reports that another group that traveled to the next city is safe and working on reinforcing their gate. Takagi wants to stay and defend the house, but her father refuses, as he knows the gates won't hold, and the undead will get in one way or another. He tells Takashi to be strong and asks Kota to protect his daughter, as Takagi will leave with the group. Takagi protests, but her mother slaps her. She tells her to wake up and that they have responsibilities here, and sending her away is the one thing they can still do to protect her as her parents. Alice gets a gentle hug from Takagi's mother, who tells her to be a good girl, stay safe, and listen to what she's told. Takagi gives her parents one last look and says goodbye before heading towards the garage where the Humvee is being repaired. Back on the front lines, Takagi's father gives his final command and charges into the blood-filled battlefield. At the garage, the mechanic explains that the Humvee is built to withstand an EMP, and that whoever modified it was insanely prepared. However, a few parts still need fixing, so the group has no choice but to wait and survive. Until the end, Takagi's parents fight side by side, covering each other, knowing full well there's no way out. After a while, the Humvee is ready, and Takagi tells Shizuka to get in. The mechanic signals and the engine roars to life, so everyone piles in. Takagi invites the mechanic to come with them, but he declines, as he has already saved the one person he needed to in Takagi. With no time for heartfelt goodbyes, Shizuka slams the gas, and the Humvee charges forward, plowing through the sea of undead, leaving Takagi's parents behind, letting them know that their daughter will be okay. As the sun rises, Ri stares out the window, still thinking of those left behind. Takagi, holding back her emotions, tells everyone not to talk about it, but Kuta snaps, and he urges her to stay strong. She knows that he's right, and that there's no time to mourn. Takagi hears the engine and realizes that the Humvee isn't fully repaired, but Takashi tells Shizuka to keep driving. He tells them that he still has to find his mother and Ri's parents, and afterward they'll search for Rika too. With a road full of uncertainties and the undead in every corner, death is a certainty. But with guns in their hands, jiggle physics of the gods and the power of friendship, together they move forward to stay alive. Comment down below, clapping zombies if you watch till the end. Subscribe so you don't miss the next video.